I would consider us technological pastors. You know, we pastor technology.
Sure.
We're facilitating the message, but we're having to ask ourselves questions of, why am I doing this? Is this a conversation birthed out of ego, or is this out of impact? Like, how is this piece of technology serving the mission or vision?
Come into the light.
Shadow moves in the dark.
Congratulations! World's best cup of coffee.
What is it? Gaff tape.
All right. Welcome, friends, to another episode of Coffee and Gaff Tape. My name is Daniel Larson, and yes, Nate Anderson normally intros the show, but he is not with us today. Unfortunately, or fortunately, maybe for some of you, you're like, finally, get that Nate guy off the show. But the show must go on. So don't forget, like, follow, share, all of that good stuff that you guys are so great at doing. It's really important, not just, not for us to know like we're doing a great job, but really for the show to get out there, to gain some traction by you guys sharing it. And even in searches, as people kind of come across Coffee and Gaff Tape, the production tech podcast, we want them to hear from you and how you guys are being impacted by the show and how you guys are gaining some value from it, instead of just hearing from us and us saying that that's what it's going to do. So today's interview, really, really excited about this. It's been a long time in the making. We are sitting down with Jesse Maitland from Bethel Production. Super cool guy. His story is incredible. How he ended up at Bethel is amazing. So really excited for you guys to check this out. And without further ado, let's get into the episode. All right, as promised, we are here with the one and only Jesse Maitland. Thank you so much for joining us, man. This is a huge honor for me because I've followed you for a while now, just keeping up with what Bethel is up to. And so thanks again for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's jump right into the first question here. This is the question. Who is Jesse Maitland?
Always good to start off with a nice, deep question.
That's right.
Well, my name is Jesse. I've worked in Bethel production for the last 21 years, which is a very long time.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of, it's a lot to talk about, but other people don't know. I also have done quite a bit of commercial work and corporate work, mostly in the live event industry. So like most people who are probably listening, I've definitely had my side hustle.
Nice.
Yeah.
Everyone loves a good side hustle.
Yeah. So I do well in the business circles doing those kind of event things.
That's awesome. Just real quick, just so we don't pass it up, what sort of commercial work? If you were to drop some names, maybe help us out.
I've done some pretty cool gigs. It's funny because the higher up you go, the smaller some of those events can get. And it's really about your ingenuity. So it's like, how quick can you adapt and make changes? So sure. There's the high level, really high end produced programs or events. And then there's the ones that are, hey, we're doing this one day event in downtown San Francisco at the DocuSign building, which is like a really big deal, or the NASDAQ Center in the same area. So did some stuff in like the Twitter headquarters building, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
So things like that.
That's awesome. Are you verified on Twitter?
Ironically, I can't even get Twitter to work for me. I even created a new account and they just don't like me. I don't even post. So
oh, no. well, hopefully this famous podcast will influence Twitter to get you back on there. Absolutely. Okay. Thanks, man. All right. So let's kind of start at the beginning. How did you end up in the shadows of production?
Oh man, gosh, do I want to go deep so fast? I started in junior high. I was a very excited youth about not only my salvation and my spirituality, which is, I guess, kind of uncommon at that age, but also common for people to find their identity or to feel the call, So a lot of us are saved in church in that junior high age, but I'd been walking in my own relationship with the Lord since I was 4.
Wow.
And when I got to junior high, which that's way too much to talk about, but when I was in junior high, I actually really I was a smart student. I did great in school. I had fun. And my school said, hey, we have this program at our local access station, which most of you won't know what that is. There used to be a thing where the community would, some of the money paid into your cable company would be taxed, and that money would be used to build a studio that anyone in the community could rent.
Wow.
Which, I mean, this is old school.
That's amazing.
And so we had this little access station, which literally is for community access. So you can broadcast on your local TV. And they did a training program, and I went through this 2-week program, learned how to use all the ins and outs of the studio. Me and my friends did. And that kind of was the thing that jump started the whole technical aspect of my life. And, to make that a little deeper, it's like I had so much fun doing that. But I remember I was going into my 8th grade year, and I had a moment with the Lord where he just encountered me in a really powerful way and really emphasized how media and production was going to be a part of that message.
Wow. Dude, that's insane. So at an early age, you're feeling this call into, tech, media, and also with that ministry aspect. And, this might sound like a weird question, but like, what did you think about that? Like, were you like, oh, cool? Or were you like, wait, what? Like, did that make sense to you at the time? Or how did that kind of progress as you grew older?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. When I was young, I think I had a lot of like ambitious goals, and I definitely had an idea of what I thought it would look like. I think I was quickly mentored by a gentleman, Gene Carpenter, who I believe is the absolute original media guy for Bethel Church.
Okay.
I think he is number 1, to my knowledge. And
the OG.
Yeah, he's like the actual OG. And he, he really taught me what it meant to, I guess what it meant. Because I thought I needed to hit these high marks in production. And he taught me what it meant to live the message. And it was such a different thing. I remember at his memorial service when he passed away, I was just like, man, we're finally reaching a dream at the end of his life. And it kind of bothered me. And then I realized, I guess the Lord just spoke to me and highlighted how, as these people were sharing about his life, I realized his whole life was bringing the good news. And how the simple act of giving people DVDs or CDs or VHS tapes back then, saying, hey, you got to listen to this message, which is his thing. He would be like, so-and-so needs to listen to this. And he would literally physically hand media to people who he thought would really appreciate it. And I just thought that was such a simple act of, we're not just capturing media, but this guy was living the message and impacting people. Even though it wasn't his words, he was still delivering the message to people. And so that was a powerful thing for me. So it's like our life, we can have a vision or a calling, and we can think it looks a certain way, but oftentimes we live, our life is the ministry, I guess,
wow. Yeah.
Who we are in that process. Like our calling isn't a destination, it's a process. And it's, and you can become your message today. Like your ministry starts today, not when you reach the high mark.
Wow. That's great, man.
So sorry, I probably could have said that a little bit better, but
no, dude, that's amazing. No. And that's so true though. Like so often we can focus on the idea of what we want to be, or the idea of what we hope our ministry is or our calling is. And yet then we miss out on the here and now and like where we are and the impact that we can have. And so I think that's really timely and really important. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question from the Wayback Machine. And I'm going to look at my notes so I get the call letters right. Tell us about KGEC TV 26.
Oh goodness, I chuckle, man. I chuckle. This is a fun one. Because of that studio experience as a child, I think I was as early as 14. I would literally ride my bike and show up to a shift at this TV station as the master control switcher. And
come on, man.
I know
this is too good. This is too good.
So here I was like this super young kid who was literally riding his bicycle, and I would do my shift. I was actually one of the programs I would physically insert the media was for Joyce Meyer. So it was Joyce Meyer and a couple other Christian speakers that I can't recall who they are, but I'd be sitting there doing my program, and then I would do my inserts and my commercial breaks and stuff, and just listening to this content. And that was actually a really fun season. It was all new to me. In fact, today I could go look at the original video switcher that I first started working on outside of the studio. That is
way.
Yeah, it's pretty wild,
dude.
Pretty wild.
That's amazing. Okay.
So just a low power station. I think it was fun learning traditional old school broadcast, and kind of a fun thing. The whole Facebook Live boom.
Yeah.
When that was new, I just got such a chuckle out of it because, I've been in the media game for so long now. It's starting so young. I'm able to actually look at the trends from back then are kind of just coming back around.
Really? How so?
Yeah. So that whole live thing, everything was all about on demand. And now there's just been this revelation again of, how powerful it is to have a live stream, that sense of urgency, but also there's a lot of psychology in it. Honestly, it's there's that urgency. People jump in, they don't want to miss it. They want to be first.
Right.
But also, it is a form of passive listening too. It's definitely passive. And I think that's the thing that people don't realize. A lot of people want to be entertained, and it's in that space of entertainment where they let their walls down, and that's where the message is received. So that, I didn't plan on talking about live streaming, but it's a big part of it. So in television, I remember being inspired by the fact that I'm broadcasting this Joyce Meyer tape into the apartment that's a block away, where I know there's a bunch of drug addicts and people who are selling all kinds of stuff, but they probably have a TV still, and they're listening to stuff over the air. And while most people were inspired by cinema, I was thinking, man, I'm in people's lives on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it might be passively in the TV in the background, but I'm constantly delivering or dripping this feed of whatever content. And I just thought, man, how amazing is it to be in people's life on a daily basis?
Right.
And so that actually inspired me about live streaming and broadcasting.
That's amazing, man.
So,
man. So crazy. How at such an early age you were, thinking down those lines of reaching and, sharing the message of the gospel and all that. It's really, really cool.
I was really serious as a kid, so
That's awesome. Well, all right. Okay. So speaking of your childhood, I'm looking at the screen right now, and when you say that you've been at Bethel for 21 years, I think, how old is Jesse Maitland? So walk us through this time period of 21 years and how it relates to Bethel Church.
I have this beard here for two reasons. One, because it makes me look older. And two, it just hides the fat that's under my face. So I'm 36 years old. I reluctantly say it because I just don't feel like it. So
that's all right. You're a young soul.
Yeah.
Okay, so when did you start at Bethel?
I started pretty much that 8th grade year. One of the teachers in that studio training was the audio guy at Bethel, and so his name was Ron Nagy. Also one of my early mentors. Really, really awesome guy who really poured his heart into the ministry of Sound Wisdom. That used to be our pre-Bethel production name.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a little history for you.
That's amazing. Sound Wisdom. Nice. I'm gonna sit down at Illustrator today and make up a sticker. I think we need a Sound Wisdom sticker for sure.
Well, I got all the secrets, I guess, because most people don't know. But yeah, Sound Wisdom. That was a fun time. So many names I can mention, but Ron Nagy really was one of the audio guys at that time. David Runyon or Dave Runyon. He was also a name in that. He was actually over the department for many years, but. Anyway, Ron got me plugged in. He got me plugged in, training me how to do audio. We didn't have a video ministry really. We had a Panasonic. What was it like a 415 or something like that?
Okay.
Some old broadcast camera in the back of the room, and we recorded on SVHS cassette tapes.
Nice.
And so I definitely did that for a while, and literally just learned from there. Got plugged in super young, and I was really passionate about it. So,
man, okay.
I think I remember volunteering to label the audio cassette tapes.
That's amazing.
Where you physically type on a typewriter onto the label.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Dude, that's amazing. Okay. So then you start at Bethel as a kid, and, then you're in the, we'll call it like you're in the Bethel system. How did what did your journey kind of look like, coming on staff and making this more of a career versus a volunteer opportunity? And what was that kind of transition like?
I think I volunteered for about 4 years. We actually did. We didn't have a video ministry, so we would contract out Gene Carpenter, who obviously was a part of the house, but also he had a video business. He did all kinds of stuff. And so he was also, one of my mentors, and he was actually a communications teacher. So he actually used to be a teacher, but he was a retired teacher when I was hanging out with him. But he used to teach here at the local colleges and stuff. But so we would actually use old Canon High 8 cameras in the early days, capturing some of the earliest conferences Bethel did. And I can actually tell you the first conference that we did was with Randy Clark, when Bill Johnson took over. So when Bill Johnson was officially the lead pastor or senior pastor,
mm-hmm.
the first event that he did was with Randy Clark. And so if you know anything about Randy Clark, he has a healing ministry, and that's like literally what they do.
Wow.
It gets a little wild. So, but that was event number 1. And I remember thinking, this is fun. This is really fun. I enjoy this. And I think after that event, the vision of the house had transitioned to, hey, we're going to be a training and equipping house. We wanted people to come, experience, learn, and take it home with them. And so that's still actually the mandate today. That's our number 1 priority. But, I just remember thinking, man, that's not only is that fun, but it was just powerful to see people being impacted by the message and knowing that media was going to be a huge part of it. And, so I think that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
It's part of the question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then, okay. So then, you volunteered for 4 years.
Oh, I know. So we became an equipping house. That's what it was. And so logistically, and this is probably a good thing to bring up, we started paying people, including myself, because we needed a sustainable way to facilitate all of our events. And so with this new mandate, they recognized, hey, we just have to know that this is going to work. And, this could be a little challenging for people, but, we're all called to serve. And when money gets involved, it can be really confusing for people.
Sure.
So I felt privileged to even get offered money to operate these things. But from a pastoral perspective, taking care of your people so that they could be 100% present is also a pastoral decision.
Right.
So volunteering doesn't mean you're suffering for Jesus,
Right. Right.
It can still cost you something and you're being paid. Like the exchange isn't just monetary. It's also in your attention, your affection. It's in your heart. Is this your act of worship? And so that's I think a real common misconception. It's like it's not just about the money.
Right. No, absolutely. Okay. So then at some point along the way, and maybe I'm getting timelines mixed up, but at some point along the way, you attended Bethel's school. Is that correct? Or their university? Or what was that experience like? It makes sense starting at Bethel at such a young age, and then you just kind of like, it's like, all right, this is like the next step. Like I want to, go to this school. What was that experience like, and how did that kind of prepare you for what was next?
Great question. Wow. Well, if you can't tell, I'm pretty serious. I like to have fun, but I operate at a pretty deep level here.
Sure.
Definitely motivated by impact. That's the big thing for me. So, I think, I guess BSSM was really interesting. It's a 3-year program. And I originally, used to be a high school program. So I actually was fresh out of high school. I think I technically didn't tell them, but I wasn't quite graduated from high school, and I snuck into our first year program.
Nice.
Because I was just really anxious to be there. And it was just cool. It was cool to be a part of something new and to kind of focus and align your heart with not just, it wasn't just information, it was an impartation. And culture is, to me, I think the most valuable part of BSSM was culture. It's some things are better caught than taught. And I struggled with that phrase for a long time until I experienced it for myself, knowing that some of the best things in life, you just have to immerse yourself in culture. And, you can hear the teaching all day, but you have to experience it. So BSSM, I think in a lot of ways gave a lot of permission to dream and to experiment and just to really test the boundaries, I guess, or understand what is God doing. Oh, I guess he's not doing that. Or, oh, he's definitely on this thing over here, in a place where it was safe and you were covered by people, and a really powerful experience.
Wow. That's so cool, man. Okay. So after school, after Bethel's, I don't know, what do you call it? Help me out.
BSSM. That's all we say.
BSSM. Okay. So after BSSM, what was kind of next on the horizon for you?
Yeah. I'm scooting by here. I'm kind of jumping over, just skimming the top, but, I started going into production for a living. I really, remember, I'm ambitious. I want impact, but I also want money because I can make more impact,
Right.
So, I started doing a production company here in town, and I used to travel with several companies doing live events, mostly along the West Coast. So I go all the way up as far as Washington and all the way to Southern California, Los Angeles area. For some of you listening, Redding is extremely far north in California. We are, depending how you drive, anywhere between 6 and 8 hours from Los Angeles.
Depending on how you drive. That's awesome.
So, Yeah. So, I mean, that's a pretty good ways. And so that was kind of the full spread. So even at 17, I was starting to travel and do that kind of thing. But lost my train of thought. Talk about events.
Yep. What was next after BSSI?
What was next? Yeah. So I definitely was like in this mode of making money and trying to build something. And I really wanted to take the message of our house, the culture of our house, and really help other ministries launch themselves, and not just launch their ministry and their impact, but help them with their resources, resourcing people, and helping kind of get that income thing going for them so that they could keep producing content. So I think I helped several people really develop curriculums and courses and all that kind of stuff before it was cool. And I think I remember one of my projects, my buddy and I, we made our first auto start CD. So when you popped it in, it would automatically start, the browser would load, and you can navigate all the content. We were so proud of that because that was a big deal.
Yeah.
There wasn't software to do that. You had to do that by hand. So
you may be 36, man, but dude, you just have so much tech knowledge that goes back way, way back.
Yeah, man. I always joke with my team. It's like, I'm running on passion, because they oftentimes people ask like, how do you have the energy? And it's like, because I'm running on passion. It carries you so much further,
That's amazing.
But yeah, so that was the early days. And then 2007, 2008, we had a recession. I lasted a while until all my clients, their money dried up, and then had to close up shop and then transition back into a full-time role. I've always been a part of Bethel production, but I've definitely come in and out as a full-time or a part-time person.
I gotcha.
So after 2008, starting in 2008, I went back to full-time, and I served mostly audio, but at that time we had just launched Bethel TV, our online streaming thing was experimental. But we had just started the works of that. And I was definitely a part of the early conversations and launching that as well.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah.
Dude. So when, prior to hitting record on this, you and I were talking about, Jesus culture and kind of how you were a part of that kind of initial push or movement, whatever you want to call it. Talk to us about that and kind of your involvement in that time period.
Yeah, that's a fun one. Jesus Culture was they're their own ministry now, but they did start in Bethel. And, depending on who you ask, you'll get maybe slightly different details. But ironically, it started in my youth group. The original Jesus Culture team was my youth group.
That's
and isn't that wild? It's like I've been there forever, so it's like I have all these great stories. But Jen Johnson was singing. I was her audio guy in youth group, and that was fun. Chris Kialala played drums back then, and Gabe Valenzuela, who's one of our staff guys, runs our second year ministry. He also would play keys or all the synth and stuff. So a lot of a lot of faces were in my youth group when I was younger. And Brian Johnson was my small group leader for a period of time. So fun things like that. Most of the Jesus Culture team today, I at least went to a few of their birthdays, But yeah, so that was where that started. But in that time, BTV wasn't really a thing. And we started, it was Nathan Grubbs, who was our creative director for Bethel. And he started also doing stuff he oversaw the media department for a while. And then he also was working with Jesus Culture, who was just a little office in our building,
Right.
And, we started building this brand. We're like, what does it look like? I think the message of our youth group was really special. And they started experimenting with original music and original songs. And Banning was a fantastic pastor and a really dynamic speaker, and really inspired us as youth to really like dedicate our hearts to God and to really to dream big. Like he would always charge us with the message of we're all leaders. And he would challenge every single person, like, what does it mean to be set apart? Dedicate this season of your youth to the Lord. Don't be distracted by all these other things. And so, being that young and being ambitious and feeling this call on my life, I definitely took that serious, and I was definitely pushing, like, I gotta do this right, because, like, there's this calling on my life and I don't want to waste time, So I definitely was really focused. And so anyway, long story short, that transitioned into my business in the future, but also our team. We really built this team of individuals who were growing what it looked like to bring a immersive video experience, because the mandate of Jesus culture was, hey, we owe the world an encounter. We want people to show up and encounter Jesus in a powerful way. We're not here to entertain. We're here to transform hearts. And so there was this real conviction of like, this is sovereign. And we want people to experience him, not an emotional high, but a transformational experience in their heart, And so it was, that I think that's what really made Jesus culture take off, was this dedication and fervency of real transformation and real encounters with the Lord. And even though we had, at that point, that was the big production, like we rented all the lights and we did all the stuff. And it was really like a big youth group, essentially. But people were being impacted, and we wanted our media to reflect that, and we didn't want perfection. We didn't want broadcast. So a lot of the early conversations of like what Bethel production today is really was birthed in conversations with Nathan Grubbs, Luke Manwaring, even Drake Kelch, and myself, just dreaming about what it meant to translate into a technical environment.
Okay, so you brought up a really interesting, kind of, I don't know what the right word is, dichotomy in a way, where there's this line between entertainment and transformation. And, how did, because I think it's really, pretty easy to kind of divert into entertainment and, okay, what are we going to do to get the most eyes? But how has Bethel been able to kind of walk that line so well over the years?
Ooh, good one. I would say from a pastoral, like our pastoral team, Bill, a lot of people don't know this about Bethel. I mean, you wouldn't know, but for the first, 15 years, we didn't advertise. We just didn't. We wanted people to, I say we didn't. We probably barely did anything, but we intentionally did not advertise and promote and do the things that other people do for events. Because we really wanted people to feel drawn and called to what we would say the heartbeat, heartbeat of what we were doing. And that was really important to us. And so just drawing the right people was probably a really big part of it. And I think that like, you can tell there's this intensity about like the words and the way they communicate, of really protecting the move of God. What is he really doing? And I think that trickles down in our culture, which is, we don't ever want to make it cheap or take away from. And so we're very, very intentional about stewarding what God is doing, how he is communicating and all that kind of stuff. So when it comes to events, we wouldn't really promote because we wanted the right people there. But, we just didn't want people to say, oh, they're just trying to make money, or they're just, trying to be the next big thing.
Right.
We wanted it to be organic. And so our stage was really built on a lot of like core values of, we're putting him first, and a lot of integrity. Like it requires a lot of integrity. Even in my job, it's, when we're as technology, I would consider us technological pastors we pastor technology.
Sure.
We're facilitating the message, but we're having to ask ourselves questions of, why am I doing this? Is this a conversation birthed out of ego, or is this out of impact? Like, how is this piece of technology serving the mission or vision? And so, and that's hard. And I think I even had a conversation, just managing my team. Accolades are fun and we appreciate it, but you ask anybody on my team and they'll say that this is worship and this is how they express their worship. I think the definition of success in my environment is when I leave and the standard is still growing and is still there without me. And anyone on my team will just not tolerate anything short of the best, because God deserves our best.
Wow.
So I think this synergy of protecting the move of God, not wanting to take away from what His agenda is, and really holding each other accountable is a sense of like family or a small group. And we all just serve with our whole heart. It is our worship. So
Wow.
I think logistically, you'll see that we're more public facing these days because we recognize that we're a voice, in the global church. And we want to make sure that we're doing what's appropriate,
Right.
And so we're trying to protect people and also, get the right messages out there, but we're definitely still motivated by the same thing. So I think that answers the question.
No, you did. Well done.
Okay.
Well done. Good job.
Great. I didn't plan for that. So
I know I kind of threw a curveball at you, but you mentioned it during that. And I was like, man, like that's such a hard line, to walk when you're talking about, church, the gospel, what God is up to. And yet we're also, in a sense, you hear a lot of churches talk about like, we're competing with Netflix and like, how do we get eyes off of that and onto us? And, I just think it's an important conversation to have. And I love that, Bethel has, rooted itself in, kind of this idea of, look, like we're going to be message first and what God is up to first, and whatever comes out of that, so be it.
Yeah. In fact, it's funny you mentioned that. I think there's a lot of churches who they think of streaming as just evangelism, and that's great. And I'm really passionate about this, but if you're not, gotta be careful how I say some of this. It's beautiful to be streaming. Like, I think that's great. Everybody should stream. Some people might be offended by that, but I think everybody should stream. I think it serves a foundational need of serving your body. And really just facilitating technology and the way that people live today. Like, that's a big deal. Make it accessible, right? Like, level one, make your content accessible to the people the way that they want it and the way that they need to consume it. That's like level one success for me. I think next level is delivering quality, how do we just improve quality? But level 3 is we enter into the conversations. How are we facilitating on a deeper level where we're reaching transformational experiences? That might look like a Bible study, not just huge production value, but how are we making the content accessible for people? Not all content is meant for consumption, public consumption. And I think that's the other thing is, if you're not creating your best content for your people, that's maybe private. I would do it on a private platform. I would rethink some of the content strategy that you're having, because just broadcasting your church is ignoring an opportunity to steward your influence online and pastor an online community. Like, that is a whole nother thing. Like, it's the modern day pastoral experience. And if you're not making space for it somewhere, then you're just missing out. Wow. So that's stream.
Yeah.
But remember, you're pastoring an online audience, and that's the world we live in. So your best content should not, in my opinion, your best content shouldn't be for public consumption. It should be for pastoring your people. So really that message is about like challenging yourself to not ignore that opportunity.
That's very well said. Well done. And thank you for talking about what you're passionate about. That's awesome. Okay. So, Okay. So you did mention something a little while back where you're like, you said something about, we're not doing this just to become the next big thing. And yet, you personally have been involved in two very large worship movements, with Jesus Culture and Bethel Music. What has that been like for you personally? Kind of, being in the foundations and the inner workings of these two, call them mega worship movements or whatever you want to call it. One, I guess, what has that been like? And two, like, how do you manage those kind of expectations or for lack of a better way to say it, like, how do you not get overconfident being a part of like these amazing, aspirational type movements personally?
Yeah. There's a lot I could say here. I would probably say, how when you're maybe a little burned out or you lose perspective, how people would commonly say like, hey, you should go on a missions trip or something like, like basically go find some need and just get your perspective shifted, I think in anything that we're doing in life, we have the opportunity, we can outsmart ourselves. If you can be smarter than yourself and anticipate where you might go mentally or in your heart or whatever, like you can actually trick yourself and know, hey, usually I get burned out when I do this thing. So I'm going to make sure I plan ahead of time and change my perspective so I don't fall into that trap or whatever, Like I think there's tools that we can do to really like optimize ourselves. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody, but it does for me in my mind.
That's all right. We're tracking.
But it's staying tender, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, but we're talking about accolades and our guys really do. It's nice, but our staying in a place of worship, keeping our heart's affection on him, which is his presence, the message, like what he's doing is definitely the secret. And I think a lot of Bethel Productions, this goes across the board, but it's really prevalent in our video ministry, is the way that we film is actually a heart posture. And we want to be anticipating where God is moving on stage. So you can see it between different musicians. And I've had times I can feel the emotion kind of stirring in me, but I've had times where we're directing and the camera guy is catching the drummer, in a really tender moment. And I'll just start weeping, because you can tell God is on that musician. And it's a whole different experience when you are anticipating where God's going to be and being ready for it. Because then he can really like move through you because you've positioned yourself to be the instrument, Our camera is an instrument. So to answer the question, though, it is about heart posture and engaging on a spiritual level where we don't, where we have genuine relationships with the Lord, where we are seeking his presence. From my perspective, I think I didn't really know. I was excited to have impact, but I guess a lot of times I don't really realize how much reach we have. So I'm a little bit ignorant because I'm in it, For me, this is my local church.
Right.
But my corporate experience has been really special because I've been immersed in this culture. And when I go do these corporate things where they're godless, and realizing that they're stepping onto my stage. So I shift from a director to a production manager in those environments. And as a production manager, my job is to create a space for them. And not just a stage, but a space where they feel safe, empowered, where they feel supported, and really trying to help them with their experience that they're creating. And so I'm asking questions, lots of leading questions to prep them. But at the same time, I'm bringing my kingdom values into this environment. And I've had multiple people in this corporate space where they'll just come to our backstage area and they'll just weep with me. And they'll just share like really deep things. And, I realized this is a ministry. It's like we get some perspective on this. Media is catching people in some vulnerable places. They're facing hard things or insecurities or their inadequacies. Like they're confronted with all of it. And our job, yes, we facilitate technology, but we're also creating a stage, both physically and spiritually. Really opened my eyes to the whole thing. So I feel really humbled that I'm just a media guy who was excited about impact. And now I'm realizing it's not just out there, it's also right in front of me. And so I've never really felt the ego of it all. I think I didn't realize I was good at camera work until about 2 years ago. I'm probably one of the best follow cam ops out there. No one really likes sticks. And I didn't realize how good I was until about maybe a year and a half ago.
Really?
Yeah, it's just really wild. So to even say that, it makes me feel a little weird. But I'm like, no, I'm actually really good at it. Like, I don't know. I haven't met anyone better. So if you think you're better, please reach out. Let's duel it out. Let's see.
Follow cam op wars.
I know, right? There's that whole rubber band effect and like making it really, really locked in. Right. And then there's how do you make it look like it's not on sticks? And so I think I do those things really well. But I would say community really helps with that, man. Yeah. It's like when you're serving people and you're serving others, not just yourself, like your affection is set on him and you're also serving others. You're not really making space to think about yourself. So really long-winded answer.
No, I love it. This is
a lot of layers to that.
That's good. That's good. This is a podcast, man. We got nothing but time. Nothing but time. All right. Okay. So here's a question that, I feel like needs to have more conversation around, just in production in general, especially in the church world. When it comes to living in and working in a time period or a season of transition. And so Bethel's going through that right now with some leaders transitioning to a different season of life and new leaders coming in. And what has that been like for you? And what has that been like for your team? Maybe even as a church as a whole? Like, how are you guys walking through that and walking through that well in a season where maybe there could be some uncertainty as to, what's next or, who's in charge and all this different stuff?
Yeah. So lots of transition in our environment. It's left and right. And, in transition, everybody kind of reevaluates things, if so-and-so does it, maybe I should too. And I think it's good. I think it's a great thing. Anybody feeling a call for something obviously should go do that thing because we're in pursuit of something greater than ourselves. When you lose sight of that, that's just a real bummer. You're stagnant. You always want to be growing. And Bethel's really an environment full of, I guess you'd say, entrepreneurs. Like we're really most of us there are called to ministry, our own ministry. I would say even myself, it's like I've been doing production work forever. If I didn't work for Bethel, I'm still doing the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because this is the ministry that I'm in, and I carry a personal conviction in that. And I think that's what I want to talk about is, when you're called by the Lord, it's your conviction that you pastor and steward. We want fathers and we want leaders to guide us, and we should pursue those. But ultimately, he's the one leading us. And carrying that conviction will carry you through transition in a completely different way. You're no longer uncertain, because it is your conviction. You're already living your message. And, and that was a big deal for me. Like, even taking over for someone like Chad. Chad has a big name. It's I thought it would be super simple because I've been in the environment actively working and serving for so long, and nothing replaced the process. Like I still had to go through the growing pains of becoming a leader over a department, winning a certain sense of favor, earning trust in a new role. These guys were my friends, they were my peers, and now they're my employees. And so there's just no way to shortcut it. But even my leaders above me giving me input of things that they want to see different or just different. We'll say that. And really wanting to prove, it's like we have this need to prove something. We want to prove to ourselves and prove to others that we can do it.
Sure.
But if it's birthed out of this insecurity of, I just want to prove to them that I'm good enough, it usually just doesn't work. And it wasn't working for me until I was just done. I just realized I have to do what's true to my conviction, and I have to do what I know and what I think is right so that I could become fully alive and fully effective in my role. And as soon as I just went all in on that right there, instead of trying to make everybody happy, I wasn't effective. So I was like, I'm going to make someone unhappy, but right now it's not working. So you might as well just give it a shot,
Sure.
And so all of a sudden, literally like a light switch, my directing got better. My capacity for managing team and logistics and all those types of things really got a lot more optimized or streamlined, and conversations with people became much more powerful, and things were getting done. So, give yourself some credit. Like if you're called, go all in on the conviction that you're pastoring and carrying, and don't worry so much on what other people are saying. We're here to serve. Our hearts are tender. But if you're living and making decisions out of insecurity, you're just never going to have impact.
Dude, that's so good. So good. Okay. So kind of on that same kind of topic of impact.
Don't forget to switch.
Oh yeah. Thank you. There we go. Look at that.
The director and me.
Dude, well done. Well done. I'm so glad you can see the multi-view. Okay. So on that same topic of impact, and kind of taking this, call it new leadership role in your department, what is it like kind of leading this, this team, this, Bethel production, as it were? Like, what are some of the challenges in that? And not specifically during transition, that could be a part of it, of course, but just like, that this idea of like, you're now responsible for people versus, a production, if that makes sense. And how do you balance that? How do you work through that? And maybe, what are some, maybe what's a core kind of leadership principle that maybe you can share with us and our listeners, kind of as we go into our day-to-day and are looking for maybe something to help us.
Gosh, I don't want to sound like I'm repeating myself. I would say let's sum it up real quick. Ask me the question one more time.
Yeah, no,
shorter.
Absolutely. Yeah, sorry. I do kind of ramble on my questions. Okay. So, leading people comes with a lot of different challenges. We were talking about having impact, leading through transition, your peers, your friends, now kind of becoming employees. What are some of the challenges that you faced as a leader, stepping into that role And what's maybe one kind of leadership nugget that you could share with us that could help us?
Let's give this a shot here. We'll give this a shot. So I think one of the things when I first took the role, I was going to have my suggestions, and everybody's going to have their preferences. And I remember this tension of certain people on my team feeling like they needed to protect or advocate for something from the past, like they had to defend it. And it was a real indicator to me. I'm like, wow, I need to develop trust with this person because they're not trusting me that I have that exact heartbeat in mind. And it's like, even though I've been here for 20 something years, not all of them have been here that long. Most of them have only been here 3 to 5 years, and they don't have that history, and they don't have my heart history. And so learning that I have to steward a relationship with each and every single employee is completely different. Managing contractors is a completely different experience. Let me tell you, you have a list of demands. This is what you're going to do. You pay them a rate, and you demand, not perfection, but you demand excellence. Otherwise, they don't get paid. That's it. It's really a simple transaction. But you add an employee model on top of that, and then you also add a movement, where we're motivated by passion, and we have all these callings and heart complexities and their personal lives, their families. It gets really, really complex. And I think my biggest thing was realizing, hey, I need to build trust with them, that I'm putting them first, and that I'm invested in them. And, the big shift was, I guess I needed to prove that, honestly. I just needed to let them know that I was there even though I was passionate and driven, I think it made them a little nervous, just because I just have a big drive. And once I prioritized their hearts, they knew that I was for them, not for myself. I earned a lot more respect with them. And again, I was their friends, but I needed to earn their respect as a leader. And so, and in the church, I think that's true in any ministry. It's like, you got to put your people first. When you do, from a management perspective, they perform better. They will perform better. And so just like I am trying to inspire them to bring their best to the team and to what we produce, I'm asking them the same questions. What's the vision? I love what you're doing here. Do you have vision what's your vision for your family? What's something that you see yourself doing? And trying to take the same posture that they're bringing to my work environment and asking, helping them take that into their life. Right. So there's definitely that pastoral element of, do you have vision for how this is going to serve that? Really, really helps close the gap. So a practical example is, if they have a dream in their heart, how is this going to help them get there? So any correlations I can have or make is a big deal. I feel like that's kind of rambling and very vague, so I apologize.
No, that's awesome. Thank you. And so just to kind of pile on that, I feel like, so often you hear, to the point of it almost becoming cliche, where it's whatever type of leadership role you're in, if you make it about your people, then your product per se is going to benefit.
Absolutely.
And yet so often we can get so focused on the product that the people will become second. And then all of a sudden things start to fall apart. And so I think that's super important.
I would probably, I think one of the things, this is something I'm really passionate about. So during COVID, when we were still pretty much in lockdown, it was a real challenge for everybody. Right. And I think, I saw my business completely shut down. it was financially extremely detrimental to me, you know? So yeah, there is no aid for self-employed people.
Right.
So that was a rough season. I think it revealed a lot of just stuff I needed to work on in my own heart, but it was just a fascinating time period. I think, I met with several people just before that happened, and then also during, all tech directors or video directors of some level. And I was so, I was shocked at how many of the people that I was interviewing, just having a conversation like you and I are, where they just didn't have a strong sense of their identity outside of the work that they were doing, you know? Mm-hmm. And they could not make, now some of this is like, you got to realize I got my filter on, like I see things from my culture. So don't be offended when I say a lot of people out there can't make a decision without their pastor.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And it's to be effective, I think, in this role, to be a leader, you have to learn how to lead yourself, and you have to have a sense of who you are. If you don't know your identity or the value you bring, you just can't do it. And so that was a real eye opener for me. It's like, if you are struggling with your passion or your reason for doing what you're doing, you know, it's, and you need some conviction, you know, talk to me. I'll give you a vision, but ultimately you really want that to come from the Lord. It's the calling for your life. And it grounds you to the truth. And, you know, in culture, we talk about, you know, what's your truth is the phrase, right? Mm-hmm. And it always frustrates me because it's not your truth, it's his truth. Jesus is the truth and the way. And so if he's guiding you, he's going to give you a purpose, and you have a place to, you have a spot in the kingdom. Like, you are facilitating the kingdom of the Lord. So don't sell yourself short. Like, you know, he's for you, not against you. And I would challenge you to really seek it out. Seek out that relationship in that way. So
good. So
yeah,
good.
I think that adds a little bit extra to the end there, huh?
No, absolutely. Okay, so we're getting close to the end of our time together, and that always makes me a little bit sad because I feel like, you know, I could talk to all of our guests forever. We're just talking about, you know, hold on, I'm going to start that over again. Okay, so we are coming to our time. Okay, so we are coming to the end of our time together, and it always makes me sad because I feel like we could just talk forever on this stuff. And I'm hoping that people that are listening are receiving something from it, because I know I am. I know that I can get myself wrapped up in, you know, where does my identity lie? You know, am I what I do, or am I who God says I am? And I know that I can kind of like fluctuate between those two. And so this has been really helpful for me to hear as well. So thank you for sharing all that.
Cool. That's awesome.
But we always want to just kind of bring it back to, you know, what's at the heart of what Jesse does. You know, gear is great. Red Komodos are amazing. We love those. But what is it that makes you tick? And I have a feeling, you know, we're going to hear some stuff that we've heard before, and that's okay. But in a nutshell, you know, what's your why?
Oh man, I think, well, maybe I'll put a little different spin on it because, you know, gosh, do I want to share this?
Yes, you do.
I know there's a mixed audience that's going to hear this. And so I just want people to hear my heart here. My walk with the Lord is probably just a bit unconventional in the sense that I have a lot of moments with the Lord where it's just like these marked moments in my timeline where just things changed. And I think whenever we experience the truth of who he is, and so I would say when he encounters us in that moment, a true encounter does not leave you the same. You'll always be marked, and it'll always change you in some way. When my salvation, when I was 4, this won't be long, I promise, but
That's okay.
When I was 4 years old, I was listening to this crazy sermon on the radio. It was terrible. It was driving through the Grapevine on the way to Los Angeles. So we were making the trek. It was a good long drive, and it was early mornings. It's probably very, very early. It's probably like 6:30 in the morning, and the message was kind of wild. Definitely counterculture to what I'm experiencing today. But I remember after the sermon asking my mom, like, Mom, I don't want that to happen to me. How do I get saved? So Mom, good old Mom was like, okay, well, let's pray. And so we had a little salvation prayer in the car, and I said the prayer, and I'm like sitting there thinking about my decision. And I was like, man, that was a great decision. I like that, feeling real, real content. Yeah. It's funny how you can remember these things.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy about this decision, and then feeling the real call of the Lord, I guess. And I think in that moment, though, all of a sudden, my sister's in the back sleeping. It's just my mom and I in the front seats, and I hear a man's voice speak to me, right? And he says my name. And so I respond, I'm like, whoa, who's in the car? Mom, there's a man in the car. And, so obviously there was no man in the car,
right.
And the radio was off at this point. And, the only thing I could conclude was that it was the Lord calling me, just saying my name. And, a lot of us would say, well, why would the Lord just say your name or something? And I think I was privileged in my salvation experience to hear the voice of the Lord. But it meant I was able to go through life with this expectation, or just knowing God has called me, and that simple truth and the simple fact that he validated my salvation and that he had called me.
Wow.
And I think when you encounter the love of the Father, it changes you. Your motivation is so different. You're living for the kingdom, and you're happy to lay your life down for that. And it doesn't mean we're not powerful people, but it does mean that we're living for a purpose outside of ourselves, and we set our eyes or our gaze on him. It's going to motivate you,
Dude.
And so my why is I am impact driven, and I love metrics. I even love seeing lots of money come in because my attachment to the things of this world, I pray, get less and less every day. It doesn't mean I hide from them, but I recognize that God's economy works different than mine. And so these material things are not really relevant to the big mission.
Sure.
And so whatever way I can serve people is my privilege, especially when I allow myself to encounter his love for me and his love for others. And I think that's the part we often forget, is we have to love people too.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not just our love. And if we're being encountered by his love, we're being marked and changed. And we have to love people. And if you're having a hard time loving them, it's like, man, let's get that offense out of there. Let's remove those things and learn how to love again. And also, I think, there's a lot of tension in the world today, even within the faith, of what's right and wrong. It's like, man, if we had a love encounter pursuing the truth, the truth is the revelation of who Jesus is. But if we put that in the front and center, we're going to see the truth different. And even when we disagree, we're going to be disagreeing with the pursuit of truth, not who's right and wrong.
Wow. Dude.
So I think it's my ultimate conviction to steward conversations that produce real change and real impact, not just to entertain viewers, but at the end of the day, that your family is transformed, that you are living in your true centered sense of identity and purpose and calling, that you would encounter the love of Jesus.
Wow.
So
If that's not the perfect end to a podcast interview, I don't know what is. But Jesse, seriously, thank you so much for your time. I can't say enough just about, the conviction that you wear on your sleeve is infectious and inspiring. And just so grateful for the time we've been able to share today. So thank you so much for making this happen.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I think this is the first one I got teary-eyed on. So
Awesome. Like I said, we are pretty famous around here, so we do our best. Just kidding, guys. Just kidding. All right, have a good one, man.
thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Well, that was awesome, wasn't it, Nate? Nate? Nope. Oh yeah, Nate's not here, but that's okay. I'm going to give you a recap and we'll get you out of here. Big thing that stood out to me from that episode was just this theme of identity and knowing that you aren't what you do, you are who you are. And I just feel like that can be applied in so many different areas of production. It's so easy. I know I told Jesse, like, that's something that I personally struggled with a lot, during my time in ministry, is like, I'm not what I do. And yet so often, like, I viewed myself as that. And so, it's not a good place to be. It's not a fun place to be, where then all of a sudden, especially, during these past, so many months of dealing with lockdowns and shutdowns and all this different stuff, like, all of a sudden a lot of that was taken away. And then we were kind of left with, the shell of maybe what we had. And then all of a sudden we're like, wait, who am I if I'm not doing what I'm doing? And so it's just really, really important to take inventory on that and sort that out before it, causes some problems. I think the other cool thing was when he talked about going through transitions. I know in production, especially in the church world, there can be a lot of different, whether it's personnel transition or vision transitions or, leadership transitions, where things are kind of shifting and all of a sudden you kind of become unsure of, maybe what your role is, or who am I reporting to, or where is this whole thing going? And again, just kind of going back to the identity theme, like, who you are is not what you do. And that really being a catalyst to kind of help you through any sort of transitions you might be going through. So hope you guys took a lot away from that. And thank you so much for taking the time to listen. Don't forget, like, follow, share, all that good stuff. Helps get the word out and helps other people that are in the shadows feel seen. So it's a win-win. That is it for today, and we will see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.